According to the Wall Street Journal, real estate developer Country Garden failed to make 2 payments as scheduled this week. Since the beginning of this year, various parts of China have continuously optimized their real estate regulation policies, including purchase and sale restrictions, lowering the minimum down payment ratio, issuing housing purchase subsidies, strengthening provident fund support, housing deed tax subsidies, and mortgage transfer of second-hand housing. The intensive policies introduced seem to be difficult to alleviate the debt crisis of real estate developers. Another Chinese real estate developer, Evergrande Group, also released financial reports in July, with a total loss of 812 billion yuan in 2021 and 2022, including a net loss of 686.22 billion yuan in 2021 and 125.81 billion yuan in 2022. In terms of assets and liabilities, as of the end of 2022, Evergrande's total liabilities amounted to 2.43741 trillion renminbi, while Evergrande's total assets amounted to 1.83834 trillion renminbi, making it insolvent. On the other hand, the debts of local governments represented by local urban investment companies have also entered a crisis period. Last December, Junyi Road and Bridge Construction Group Company Limited, a local government financing platform in Guizhou province, reached an agreement with banks to extend loans worth over $2 billion for 20 years. The extension behavior has forced the outside world to start worrying about whether the debt problem of local financing platforms has reached an uncontrollable level. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Fund, wrote in his book Debt Crisis, credit refers to empowering others with purchasing power, and others promise to repay that purchasing power in the future, that is, to repay debts. Obviously, empowering others with purchasing power through credit is a good thing in itself. On the contrary, not empowering others with purchasing power, preventing them from doing beneficial things, may have adverse consequences. The slow development caused by insufficient credit is undoubtedly a bad thing. When the debtor is unable to repay the debt problems arise. In other words, determining whether rapid credit/debt growth is a good or bad thing depends on the outcome of credit generation and debt repayment. From here, we can see that not all debts are bad. The key to the good or bad of credit, i.e. debt, lies in whether it is used to generate returns and generate sufficient returns to repay the debt. Dalio also explicitly calculates the emergence and resolution of debt crises in his book. When about 40% of loans cannot be repaid, actual bad debt losses occur, and those non-performing loans account for about 20% of all outstanding loans. Therefore, the bad debt loss is approximately 8% of the total debt. The total debt is approximately 200% of total income. For example, in GDP terms, bad debt losses are equivalent to approximately 16% of GDP. If this loss is socialized within 15 years, shared by the entire society through fiscal and monetary policies, the annual loss is about 1% of GDP, which is acceptable. Of course, if not allocated annually, the loss would be unacceptable. Finally, he concluded that the risk of heavily borrowing mainly lies in the willingness and ability of decision-makers to spread bad debt losses over many years. Whether decision-makers can achieve this depends on 2 factors. First, whether the debt is denominated in a currency that decision-makers can control. Second, can decision-makers exert influence on creditors and debtors accordingly? If the crisis in China's bond market is RMB debt, it is almost certain that it will not be resolved at this stage, because first, RMB debts are of course denominated in RMB. Second, the central government can certainly exert sufficient influence on both creditors and debtors of RMB debt. So the problem focuses on non-RMB denominated debt, especially US dollar debt. The key market factor for US dollar debt is the exchange rate between the Chinese yuan and the US dollar. The RMB-USD exchange rate is not only the reason for the resolution of US dollar debt, but also the result of the resolution of US dollar debt. If the exchange rate remains stable, it will provide good support for the resolution of US dollar debt. We will witness where the crisis resolution of China's bond market will go next.